about last week, the Australian government announced plans to increase fees for university students wanting to study subjects in the humanities and social science degrees, which also includes business and law, while decreasing fees for job relevant subjects, which are fields in STEM, essentially. So, what was your reaction to hearing this news?
Yeah, first reaction was, it was mixed reaction. It was, what's going on? Why is this happening? What does it mean for future students or the current students who are now studying? And for me, it was a mixed reaction because I had just graduated from university, so I could really value the multidisciplinary nature of my degree, but at the same time, I knew that, well, my arts subjects, for example, were less expensive than my science courses. And for many reasons, my science courses were more expensive because you went to practicals and you had more like lab equipment and things like that. But I guess with the increase of fees, it first of all, it does discourage students from continuing their studies in a particular discipline. And I know that if this happened when I was still studying, it would have discouraged me from pursuing my honours thesis in arts, for example, because it just would have been way more expensive than if I just continued doing it in science. So I think overall it's not a positive outcome for university students or prospective university students who are coming from high school or have taken a gap year or from rural and regional areas, because the idea of going and studying in university is so dependent upon cost as well. And if you increase cost, it means you're further marginalizing demographics within the student population. So, and this might mean people who are from rural areas, people who come from low-income families, and are supporting their families at the same time. And more than that, I think it kind of delineates people from you're job ready and those who don't do STEM are not job ready. And for me, that's a bit of a stark reality of you don't value the arts and the humanities as much as STEM. And quite recently, there was actually another article that came out on The Conversation, written by two academics who are actually from British Columbia or Canada, and they were commenting on the federal decision to increase fees for university degrees in Australia. So, the news of this has reached internationally, and it's raised concerns of, well, when you prioritize or you favor certain disciplines over another, you're reducing the capacity of students to be globally competent. And that's a term that they used in the article, which I found really interesting, and I'll be able to link it later. But it's quite, I think it's a bit sobering reading those kind of analyses of and reactions of, well, we're going to fund more STEM degrees and emphasize that they're job relevant, whilst ignoring the fact that humanities is quite fundamental to understanding social and civic behaviour that influences how STEM operates in healthcare systems, for example, or engineering systems and so on and so forth. So overall, I think it's a bad outcome just because it marginalizes people further from studying something that may be an interest of theirs or a lifelong goal, and it further kind of polarizes the future projections of our economy if we continue to go down a traditional economic pathway of prioritizing STEM over the creative economy. Yeah.
That was perfect. So I guess coming from sort of this unconventional background in science where you studied geography, have you ever worried about whether you will find a job in that industry or in the industries you're interested in, or ever worried about just not being able to make enough money?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. And I think 2020 has really cemented that, I guess, that concern or that maybe fear. I'm not really sure how to kind of put a word to the emotion, but it is like a sort of worry or an anxiety because everything's so uncertain. But the one thing that I'm more certain about is that no job is ever secure. You could be working in the public sector, for example, and then if there's funding cuts or there's budget reallocations, your department might be merged with another and you might lose the job that you might already have and be asked to take on another role. So I think in terms of finding a job in my industry, first of all, my industry is based on what skills I'm able to commit to and put forward to future employees, for example. So technically my industry is the social impact space, which is the civil sector or the NGO not-for-profit space. And that sector itself in Australia at least is quite, there's always short-term jobs and you're always on a very short cyclic employment contract unless you manage to secure a more permanent job, which is difficult. So that's why a lot of people in this sector are always doing 3 or 4 things, myself included. In terms of not making enough money, I mean, that's always a concern if I needed a lot of money. I think in terms of living sustainably or living to just meet my needs and which require on monetary expenses, yes, I'm still worried about it because technically right now I'm a sole trader, which means I provide consulting work, consulting advice, and on the offside of my part-time job, I'm freelancing, and that is always like you're hustling. So there's always in order to get to the next job, you always have to work, and that period of finding that work is always a space of concern. But I think going forward, for me, it's about if I find a job in my industry, well, that job will be something that I've created from my own hard work. And I know that that's the reality for many other young professionals and early career professionals, because the jobs now are just becoming obsolete. There's new jobs being made, especially in the creative economy, and that's just the new reality for us. So I think it's always propelled by worry, but it's worry for the sake of, can I do better? What am I missing? Will this be financially sustainable for meeting my basic needs and ensuring that I have some comfort and a bit of disposable income? But in terms of making enough money, I think that concept for me is not really there, because enough money implies, for me at least, that I need money in excess of what I need it for.
Perfect. So there are a lot of people who do measure their success by making money, again, and having wealth and having a lot of tangibles and even earning a lot of titles through different degrees or masters or your PhD. What does, in your opinion, do you think, does money equal success to you?
In short, no. And I think at this point in my life, as a recent graduate and an early career professional, definitely not. Like all the things that have come my way this year, in terms of a job opportunity, or other pro bono or volunteer opportunities, have come because of the work that I've done before and the kind of work ethic that I put forward to other people and the conversations I have with people. So that doesn't come with money. Like, that never came through the fact that I was supported financially or something. It was, for me, it was putting in a lot of your spare time to create a space for myself, and that was definitely not based on materialistic things. I was, thinking about this question. It always makes me think about the fact that whilst I'm a recent graduate, I still function like a student at times, and that means like I will find any sort of resource that's around that's either free or can be loaned or something, and I will use the most of it for my own means of creating another pathway forward in terms of my career or what I want to do. So if that means I have to go to a cafe and use the free Wi-Fi and sit there and do work, then I'll do that. But that's not based on materialistic things. It's just based on using whatever resources is out there, that it isn't contingent upon money. And yeah, for me, I guess it's if I'm wanting to measure my success, I think for me it's more of if I can sit in a place and just have my laptop and a bottle of water, what work or what impact can I make on another person's life just sitting there and doing something, rather than investing in something and hoping that it'll cause some sort of longer term impact to someone. And of course in terms of impact investing, for example, or things like that, there will be an impact, but in the immediate term, for me, it's about what can I do in the now that will bring me joy, and that translates to success for me.
That was perfect. So that was the final question, but did you want to add anything else or give any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think the whole mindset around just non-traditional degrees has to really change, because what is traditional and what is non-traditional, you know? If we're talking about the same narrative of what the Australian government has recently announced with, okay, we're going to prioritize STEM over humanities, then you're going to further delineate traditional and non-traditional degrees and traditional and non-traditional career pathways. And whilst that, you know, doesn't happen on a daily conversational basis, it does create social barriers from people either entering a certain work sphere or having conversations with people from different sectors or different, you know, work mindsets. And that's really corrosive to our young people, but also just our society in general, because it means that, you know, on a macro scale, if we want to look at it from a systems perspective, it means that people are not working as well as they can together. And the more that you have this kind of segregation of people in sectors or things like that, it just does not allow you to create an economy that's prosperous but also sustainable and regenerative. And that is not conceptual or systematic concepts that are already in our economic system, because it's always dependent upon growth. And for some people, growth is not how they measure their success. So I think just starting from the fact of we need to dismantle the idea of not talking about having traditional and non-traditional pathways really makes it easier for people to then come together, come in harmony, work together better, and also understand each other better. So that was kind of one of my reflective thoughts through this whole conversation, was that I think we need to start back from the beginning and kind of have a general clean slate of discussion, especially in our education sector. Like we cannot continue to have disciplinary silos and talk to students and prospective university students of, well, one sector is actually better than the other, or if you go down this job pathway, it's better than this one because it's more financially secure. And I think, you know, the events of 2020 have shown that that's not true. So yeah, I guess that's my final thought.